Hey everybody. So I've been making a lot of videos about the superhero genre, superhero films and stuff, and I kind of want to mix up today and talk about another popular film and TV genre. It's the coming of age genre. There are a lot of TV shows and movies that fall into this category, but there's so many. It comes extremely easy for these new entries to fall into the same kind of cliche plot points and melodramatic BS that we've seen 1,000 times before. And unfortunately, for every one good coming of age tale, there's at least 10 bad ones. So it really pisses me off because when these projects are done right, they really can be spectacular. So I'd like to kind of go through my list of the top 5 coming of age tales and movies and just kind of tell you why I'm impressed by these. Now, obviously, there are many more great coming of age tales that won't be on this list. These are just kind of the ones that come to mind when I think of great coming of age stories. First, there's The Breakfast Club. Now, I had to pick at least one John Hughes movie to put on this list. And I picked this film because it does a really good job of both showing, a cross-section of the different social groups in high school, the nerds, the geeks, all that stuff, the popular kids. It does this through each of the characters, while at the same time making these characters feel like real people and not just plot devices. These characters come from different backgrounds and live very different lives, but they all are able to relate in this film to one another and the struggles they're facing. They have a lot of There have been a lot of movies that have tried to copy concept since then, but none of them do it better than this original film. And I really think it holds up pretty well. Plus on top of it, there's kind of a really nice, kind of classic 80s vibe going on in this film because, the soundtrack, the montages, all that stuff. And I think that makes it very enjoyable to watch. Number 2 is The End of the Effing World. Now, this is probably the most mature entry in our list, and it's also the most underrated. Not a lot of people watch this show. And what makes this show great is how well it handles kind of these familiar themes of coming of age tales like loneliness, angst, and not really fitting in at school or with your family. And it does it in a really unique way for both of the main characters. On one hand, you have James, who initially introduces himself as a psychopath who wants to kill someone, but we quickly learn that that's not true. He's not a psychopath. He's dealing with the suicide of his mother, and he just wants to feel normal again. Alyssa introduces herself in a way that, she kind of wants to feel like, to make you think she doesn't care about anything. But we quickly learn, she's just acting that way because she's dealing with abandonment issues, both from her father, who abandoned her when she was a little girl, and with her mother, who, essentially emotionally neglects her since she remarried a man that isn't exactly the largest fan of her. And because these two characters, they aren't really saying exactly what they're thinking, they're not really in the best mental state, that leaves a lot of the storytelling to the cinematography, the music choice, and even the color palette. And it uses all these different elements to help you kind of understand what the characters are feeling, what they're going through. And it makes it feel not only very meaningful and thematically rich, but also very beautiful to watch as well. So I really enjoyed this entry. Number 3 is Stand By Me. You really can't talk about coming of age movies without talking about Stand By Me. It's kind of a classic in this genre. And, in this film, we see the lead character who is grieving and dealing with the death of his older brother. And in the midst of that, they embark on a journey to find a dead body. It could go wrong. Sounds like a perfectly smart thing to do. But, throughout this journey and throughout, the long walk along the train tracks to get there and all the crazy things they go through, you really see how both the main character and his parents are struggling in trying to come to terms with what happened and how his relationship with his friends is helping him to deal with this loss. So, I think it's a very simple theme, that of grief and getting over it, but it's just handled so well, and that makes this film just a classic for me. Number four is Looking for Alaska, and this is the newest entry onto our list, but, much like how I had to include one John Hughes movie in this list, I also had to include one John Green project. He writes these tearjerkers, but unlike most, other kind of people in this niche, like Nicholas Sparks and others like him, who write, kind of cliche, melodramatic tales, he's able to create these new and unique stories in a way that they manage to avoid these these melodramatic cliche plot points. So in Looking for Alaska, unlike a lot of those other tearjerkers, they really had this very deep and meaningful source material that deals with the issue of loss and grief, but also with, the purpose of life and really even the afterlife. And, spoiler alert, but there's a major death in this miniseries. Alaska, the main love interest, dies. But what I like about this is she doesn't die in the last episode. There's several episodes left after her death. And so you get to really see this deep soul-searching and philosophic journey that the characters go through after Alaska has died. This story was, also very poetically written by John Green, and the beautiful cinematography in this film, it matches and perfectly complements the beautiful writing in a way that makes these characters and the connections they have with each other feel real. The only minor issue I have with this is I think they went a little too far making Alaska kind of a social justice warrior, feminist. In some scenes, she felt a little cartoonish and forced. But other than that, I really love this miniseries. Other than maybe Band of Brothers, this has probably got to be one of my favorite miniseries of all time. Number 5 is Spider-Man 2. And I know this might seem like an unorthodox choice for a coming-of-age tale list, but in the end of the day, Spider-Man is fundamentally about the responsibility that comes with growing up and making the right decision even when it's not, when others don't appreciate it and you have to lose out on other opportunities as a result of it. If you go back and read a lot of the old Spider-Man comic books, instead of the cartoonish happy ending you might expect a lot of them to have, most of them actually end in a kind of depressing manner, in which Peter Parker is like, everyone hates me. My girlfriend hates me and thinks I'm cheating because I'm never around. I have to be out saving people. My friends and my aunt think I'm an unreliable friend and nephew. Pretty much society fears me and thinks a lot of people think I'm evil. I'm giving up all these opportunities and no one seems to appreciate it. Well, thanks for reading. Come back next week. And that's a lot of people expect these comic books to be like upbeat and optimistic, but in the end of the day, it's kind of a hard life that Peter Parker has, and these films kind of show it really well. It shows really well how Peter Parker has to essentially lose out on a relationship with the woman he loves, Mary Jane, and he has to struggle to pay rent and balance the responsibilities of Spider-Man at the same time, in a way that it really shows how terrible it actually is to be Spider-Man. An aspect of the comics I always liked was how whenever people kind of aren't appreciating Spider-Man, to say the least, whenever he's missing out on all these opportunities, he says it repeatedly, he believes he was given these powers for a reason. He truly believes that. And in this film, you see Aunt May's speech that perfectly sums up this theme, this idea that, Spider-Man is there for a reason. You have to go back to your responsibilities as Spider-Man when he tries to leave. And the train scene, there's this beautiful kind of Christ metaphor or allegory, which represents, all that he's given up to protect the people of New York City. And in this moment, the people of New York City, as short as it might be, they finally show him how much they truly appreciate all that he's done for them. And when it comes to coming of age tales, the responsibility of adulthood is a great theme to explore, and I would argue that no film or TV show in this genre has really done a better job of handling this theme than Spider-Man 2. Well, that's my video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.